let's get started. We've got a lot to cover today. Welcome. My name is Mark Casto. I'm Principal Product Success Manager here at ServiceNow, and I specialize in the Enterprise Architecture product, formerly known as Application Portfolio Management. And today we're here to talk to you about the power of Enterprise Architecture Workspace, which probably many of you know already, but if you're not familiar, this will be a good place to get started. This is the main UI now for working with application portfolio management, enterprise architecture, and the product is really changing and evolving. And we're going to get a good view of that today. So starting off, we have safe harbor notice. We're going to talk about some of the upcoming features. Our presentation will contain forward-looking statements based on our beliefs, assumption, what we know we're planning, but plans can change. So we don't want you making decisions, especially critical decisions based off of these things, and so on and so forth. We have webinars every month. We run these, try to run them on the last Tuesday of the month. My team, but also the product team has got a whole series of different events. If you use this QR code, you can join our interactive event series and sign up for the things that you want to see. So good housekeeping, there's a Q&A button. If you guys will use that, part of my team, Siobhan and Rob are on with us. They're going to help answer your questions behind the scenes. We'll try to have some time at the end to answer live questions, and we'll do our best to answer everybody's questions. If we run out of time, post your questions up on community. We watched it, and we're always putting articles and the like up on community. This presentation will be recorded and shared on the community. Probably takes about a week for it to get up there. And we'll have an article written around it as well. At the end of the event, you'll have a short survey. If you would, we appreciate your feedback. We want to know how we can do these things better, and we always welcome your critique. As I said, I'm a Principal Product Success Manager. I've been here a little over 5 years, and for many, many years, I've been helping customers set up their enterprise architecture and their application portfolio practices. So our objectives today are first taking where you are. It's the old start where you're at. Understand what EA Workspace can do. And by the way, it keeps changing. Every 3 months, this thing is getting new capabilities. So maybe there's something new that you haven't seen yet. We're going to talk about what's real today. So if you're a couple of releases back, February, November release, you're going to have some surprises. And our overall goal is to make sure that you've got more value, more power for your programs. So the agenda today is how to install, set the thing up for people that are new to EA Workspace and enterprise architecture. We're going to talk a little bit about some big changes. Number one, it's no longer called APM. It's now EA, Enterprise Architecture. We changed the name. With that comes some other changes to licensing. We're not going to talk deeply on licensing, but we are going to talk about it for just a bit so you can understand what it all means. We're going to talk about value pillars. Then the crux of the workshop is about what are the features and functionalities. We'll talk about some of the key areas of configuration, including the big new feature, which is our modeling and visualization. We'll touch on the roadmap, and then we're going to hit a little bit of QA. We want to start off with a poll. Are you using Enterprise Architecture Workspace? Let us know if you're using it, how you're using it.
Mark, we are getting good response. I'm not sure while sharing your screen if you have the whole with you, but if you want, I can share some numbers here. So
Yeah, I
as
was I was letting it run for a little bit, give everybody a couple of minutes
perfect.
to think about it and respond. At least let it run for a minute.
Yep.
And by the way, thank you everybody for your response. This is fantastic. We do lots of these things. We're showing over 70% response. It's quite often I'll see maybe 50%. So I really appreciate your feedback. All right. So we'll share the results. 72% just beginning. That's wonderful. We're glad you're here. We want you to be able to use this new tool. 15% out of the box. That's great. 13%, yes, with some configuration. And a couple that one that has really done some major configurations and changes on it. Again, we appreciate your feedback. Um, Next is for those that are, who is using it? So with this question, we're interested in, it's called Enterprise Architecture Workspace, but it's not just for the enterprise architect. In fact, over time, we intend to grow it so it is more for the enterprise architect, but it will always serve the IT owner, the business owner, uh, solution owners, other roles. So it's, we had to give it a name, so it has enterprise architecture, but very much we want people to understand this thing can be tailored to your roles, and we want your feedback about how to better tailor it for the roles. We need to understand what those roles are. So we'll give another 10 or 15 seconds. All right. Thank you for your responses. And the results, I think, were coming out in a text box, so I don't have anything I can share on that, but we really appreciate you guys sharing with us. So the, uh, let's get into our presentation. So enterprise architecture capabilities, the product capabilities. And as I said, Workspace is meant to provide the UI manifestation of all of these capabilities. It's the foundation all of it, under all of it. There are two versions of EA now, standard and pro. The standard, roughly said, is all about supporting the rationalization use case and application portfolio management. That functionality that we've had for years now, that's not going away. It's not being usurped by EA. It's a foundational tool for the enterprise architect. It's something that's still very important, and a large number of our customers, that's where they are in their maturity. Maybe they have other tools for EA. We hope that we can entice you to give ours a chance and think about it, especially as we grow our capabilities in enterprise architecture. But it's what you see here, everything in green, all of these functions are things that have been there forever and they still exist and they're part of the EA standard. The features that have moved to Pro, and there is a migration, a business path for getting to Pro. Many customers will be able to just simply be grandfathered in, talk to your account team about this. But technology portfolio management and technology reference model, TRM, TPM. Those two functionalities, of course, modeling is part of Pro, and then various integrations with SPM, GRC, ITSM, ITOM, and IT asset management. Those are all included as part of the Pro capabilities. You still have DPM available, digital integration management, all of those are part of standard. So how to install it? From a clean Xanadu, it's become, because of this split, now it's become a little more complicated. So assuming that you had a clean Xanadu instance or a Washington instance, and you had no APM or EA install, you'd start off installing Enterprise Architecture. It's now called Enterprise Architecture. It's COM, SNC, APM. Then you install Enterprise Architecture Workspace, Enterprise Architecture Integration Management. That's the digital integration, digital interface. And then value stream artifacts. There's a new data model around value stream, and there's a lot of activity and thoughts going around being able to align your applications to the value streams, also capabilities. So you want to make sure you get that installed. Then for EA Pro customers, you install Enterprise Visualization and Modeling. That's the new modeling tool. Install TPM, Technology Portfolio Management, and then install Enterprise Architecture, TRM. So that's going to give you TPM and TRM as well as the modeling. If you're a current customer, you're going to go and upgrade the plugins that you already have. You will probably need to go do value stream. What I found in my own personal instances, I had to go do the value streams. Of course, you want to do the upgrade on anything, but I had to specifically look up value stream. Visualization had to do that, and I had to update both TPM and TRM to get the right stuff. So, questions about EA Pro and Standard. Short is, talk to your account team. They can help you through it. I do know baseline is if you are on the business per business application licensing, you're grandfathered in. So you have EA Pro now if you have the per business application license. Other types of licensing, your account team will be able to guide you. So now we want to talk a little bit about what are the value pillars of enterprise architecture. How are we imagining that we bring value? There's three key concepts that we want to push forward: simplification, transformation, and optimization. Enable lean, productive, cost-effective architecture. In other words, this is your rationalization, measure your inventory, all of the things we've been doing for years. Now, as we move forward, we want to have a higher level of strategic integrations, and then as well as the modeling is coming in, and then optimization. Again, really starting to bring out that enterprise architecture aspect of it. Desired outcomes in these areas for business, improve business processes, automation, ability to understand your APIs, microservices, technology strategy, technology alignment, and technology risk. Those are the kind of things that we want to make sure that we can address. This deck will be available if you want to review all of these outcomes. And of course, this is not all of it, but these are things that we're focusing on as our outcomes from the tooling that we provide. So now what we want to do is get into the features. Let's talk about what this thing does. It's updated, like I said. So let's see where we are nowadays. We start off on the EA Workspace homepage. You see that the left-hand side is expanded. We now have 7 different areas and features. We're going to run through each one of them. But here on the homepage, this is meant to be a landing space that drives our activity. Insights in particular are our way of calling something to your attention, saying, here's some information that you're interested in. These insights are very configurable. We're going to talk about that later in our presentation today, but you can define your insights. You can put them under the particular slot: business portfolio, info portfolio, tech portfolio. And this way you can drive the activities for the personas that are coming in. Again, these could be configured, they can be controlled by group, etc. We'll look at them a little bit more. Things that need your attention: approvals, requests, certifications, assessments, etc. We call these out here so that you can see them, you can address them. Next level, I'm diving in the tech portfolio here because it's really one of the most interesting areas for a lot of people. Technology lifecycle management is big in all industries: financial services, healthcare. Everybody is interested in that end-to-end technology management, lifecycle management. Here, we're using TPM. This is where we expose it for quick action. We, based on a particular time scale, how many risks do I have? Break it down by the business application or by the app service, or maybe by the hardware or software that's causing the risk, or the systems, servers that the risk is being shown on. Next area of it is down, and we're just moving down that home page, and we'll get to a demo in a moment too. So this is not just all PowerPoint, but we have just a portfolio overview. There's really just a few core entities that we're concerned with in the core application portfolio. The business application, of course, business capabilities, the information that supports them. That's our three key tables. There's a lot of peripherals around that, but that's what we're talking about to the most part within APM. And as I said, that's a foundational tool for EA. The other part of it is portfolio health. So for the APM admins, and even maybe members of EA, there's certain things you need a certain amount of health. You have to have the right structures, the right data out there in order to have a trusted source to make decisions off of. So the portfolio health section gives you a quick action based on your persona of what you need to do, what you maybe need to go at to make sure that things are healthy. The next section in EA Workspace is our dashboards. So this was changed a couple of releases ago. We have dashboard broken down: application, business, technology, information, and total cost ownership dashboards showing us various information. But there's more. We also have the original APM application 360 workspace, which is showing us your scores and your indicator values, and then your assessment values are shown here in the application assessments. One of the topics we're going to talk about with this dashboard section is using the new platform analytics. You can add your own dashboard. So if you have particular things you need to call out, or you want your consumers of the system to look at, you can add your own dashboard. Next, business capability. For me, this is a great improvement over the old business capability management. We have a nice hierarchical, just expanded out. You can see the hierarchy, you can see the application attached. I understand the scoring. So our capabilities, we're going to score via assessments on people, process, technology, pretty much an old school standard tradition of how you score business capabilities. But then also we see the application score and ownership, so that we have a bit of that application information. And obviously, if you click upon it, you can see full details over here in the right hand side flyouts. As you work with these, We had the ability to create a sub capability. That was something you used to have to go do, and it was a little awkward to do. Assign a business application. No more going to the relationship formatter and all of that strange UI that you had to go through. You can now just click, enter the business application name or enter a few letters, look it up, and associate it. It creates the appropriate CI relationship. Super easy. You can assign a demand. You can delete it. There's caveats. You can't delete a parent that has children and such. Um, and you can view the roadmap. This is our tie-in to SPM, and specifically to the Strategic Planning Workspace. If you have SPM and Strategic Planning Workspace, there is a capability lens that will allow you to see the roadmap of demands, projects, epics, whatever that are associated to essentially to the applications that are associated that are supporting your capability. Next in our list, rationalization. This is a big one for the APM group. So continuing with our APM capabilities, we have a traditional view, which is the bubble chart. That bubble chart can be controlled on the X and Y axis, as well as what you might call the Z axis, the size of the bubbles. And what we're doing is, you could create a demand and take action. Preferably, what you would do is set the planned disposition. Here, the colors are showing planned disposition. If you change it, the color would change. So retire is roughly red or kind of pink. Migrate is orange. And so this is meant to be a tool for perhaps EA, for IT owners, for business relationship managers, whoever is charged with taking a particular portfolio of your application. You can break it down by categories, by family, by capability, and you can understand what is the disposition. This is something that should be done periodically. As you understand, you define, here's what we plan to do with this application. Do we invest in it? It's great. We love it. We're going to invest more in it. Or maybe it's got a little bit of problems, but it's critical. We're going to invest in it. Or we just sustain it. We do whatever needs to be done just to keep it operating. Do we migrate it? Do we retire it? So we determine that, we provide a reason. We'll take a look at this in a moment. So we have the bubble chart, and then also we have the list view. So you have multiple ways that you can work with it. This list view, I don't have a picture of it, but by the way, it'll break down and show you the projects and demands associated. So it's pretty powerful as far as the information you can get out of it. Next on our list, this is brand new. This is our technology reference model catalog. So from here, I can, depending upon my role, I could either request, or even if I have the enterprise architect role, I can create a new TRM product or a TRM product lifecycle. So the product is a software or hardware product. The product lifecycle is a version specific statement of when you can use this particular version or model of the technology in production. And tradition would be that you would have maybe evaluation, then you have an approved period, then you would have a divest or sunset period in which it's not allowed for new production, but you can have it in production. You need to be planning to get off. And then finally, unapproved for production. So this is an internal usage, which is guided by your support life cycles. That's what we're doing here. So this allows you to either request them if you're not an EA. So that a non-EA user could come in here, like a developer or an IT owner. They can browse the catalog here by category and understand what's available under a particular category. Maybe you're looking for databases. So here you'd find database. There's another view, which is a list view. So whichever one you're most comfortable with, you can look for, and you can, obviously you can search and all of these sorts of things by publisher, by name, by whatever it is, to find the technology standard. This is technology standards that we're doing here. You can find the standard that's listed. And if you don't find it, perhaps you know of what you want to use, you would request it as a TRM product and establish life cycles. And there's a whole process around that. Next, this is the big new feature, enterprise modeling and visualization. So I think it's pretty obvious for everybody, first by the name change, but just our intention is to move into the enterprise architecture tool space. One of the features that we had to have is the ability to create diagrams and do modeling. Our initial offering supports a CSDM plus, and I say CSDM plus because some of the elements that are in here are not CSDM elements or entities, excuse me. And so, but we can create this architectural diagram based off of the CSDM data model. There's a couple of ways to do that. We're going to demo it in just a bit. But you have, as you can see, like you would expect in any modeling or drawing tool, you have a palette of general shapes that you can create. And then you have particular elements that are part of really our CSDM, a part of our EA data model, business application, business capability, etc. So we're going to talk about this, demonstrate it in just a moment. And you'll see also in our configuration, we're going to talk about how you can add new entities. It's going to be a release or so before we can do that, or before you'll be able to do that, but we'll show you the method here early. So this is kind of a preview of coming capability. Again, we'll talk about that in a moment. So other parts of it, just getting into what we can do. Obviously, we've got a palette. You can create versions. So maybe one of the methods from a business application record, you can create a diagram and you create an as is. Then you save a version and you add a couple of things representing the new architecture or new changes that you're going to do. You save that in that version. You can commit the changes, or there's actually a workflow that'll request approval to allow you to approve commitment of those changes so that we don't, in other words, we don't let you just write to the CMDB, like create a new server. Your CMDB admin would not be very happy. We give you a workflow that controls it, and you can control whether things can be committed or not. That's part of the configuration that can be established and part of this approval workflow. Other things that you can do. So here's the how you create a diagram. So we built this. There's just the general diagramming. I can create a new one and just start drawing from nothing and add things. I'll show you how that works in just a moment. Or in the business application, we can use the little ellipsis over in the top right and say, create a diagram. We have a lucid chart, and we're not talking about lucid chart today, but there is a lucid chart. If you had both, you could pick which diagramming tool here. We're using, obviously, our diagramming tool. You create an artifact, and then you tell it what you want to see in there. So I might pick the application service, the servers, hardware, and software, and so that I can understand. Or maybe I'm making a business capability diagram. I can determine what it is I want to see. It'll create the diagram for me. And then again, like we we're talking about over in the modeling page, you can just create a diagram. And it's what it's always going to do. It's going to store that diagram as an architectural artifact. That's a pretty important note. Now, if you do it over here in the modeling tool, you could create a generic or multi-system artifact and align the other systems to this particular artifact. So here it's specific to one business application. It's going to be attached. Over here, you might create one that's going to be attached to multiple business applications or capabilities or digital integrations, whatever it might be. So a lot of flexibility, even starting out. So this is the create from business application. Here you see create diagram. You pick what you want and you go. Again, we'll try this in a moment so you guys can see it. When adding various entities, so I have a business application, I have a application service, I can drag and drop essentially, or drag to create the relationships, and it will show me the CI suggested relationship so I can create the correct one. When it loads it from the database using like the business application, it knows that it's a consumed by relationship. It's going to show that to us. And we have a quick way. It's going to grow more in its capabilities, but once you add one type of entity, say business application, it'll show you a list of things that you can add just automatically. You can say bring in more. So you could start off with a business application and you can add and add and add to build up a diagram. We'll show you how that works in a moment as well. Approval workflows. I mentioned this. So when the application owner, solution architect, whoever creates their diagram, maybe they save as a new version or they duplicate it, they do some modification, then they submit that for approval. That approval is passed on to the enterprise architecture group. Again, that could be configured where the workflow, and in fact, the overall workflow could be configured. But after it's approved, then we allow commit changes, and it will create the CI relationships. It could create, if allowed through configuration, you could create the application service or even a server if you're allowed to do so. The big if is that you need to configure it to allow and control those kinds of creation. So here you see the submit for approval. Again, this is so we control who can commit the changes. That was one of the big points that everybody made for us. Approved diagrams. So this is what our EA would see. When they approve or reject, they put in comments. And once they approve, that's where we pass it to the approved state. Sharing, so we can share as an editor or a viewer. So you want to pass it on to others or even pass ownership. You can do that as well. We talked about versions, so we can create versions. If you're familiar with architectural artifacts, you can create versions of these things. And so when I create, it's going to create an architectural artifact in the beginning and it'll create version 1. Each time I create a version, it's going to increment the version number. And it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not a 1.1. We don't have that level of control at this time. But at least you have tracking and management of those versions. You see the approvals. Again, this is built on that architectural artifact capability. Next, portfolio lists. What would we do without list views? Here we have, and this is pretty standard across all of our various workspaces in ServiceNow, you have a place to get to list views of the underlying entities. APM, EA has grown considerably in the number of entities that we deal with. Looking up in the business architecture area, of course, business unit departments, goals, something new here, value streams and value stream stages. The data model for value streams, it was released about a year ago, but it's changed. We now have a traditional value stream, and then a value stream is made up of particular stages. Those stages have association to business process and capabilities. We're not covering it today, but look for some future workshops that we'll have where we'll talk about value stream management, and we're going to see that we're going to have value stream diagramming in the diagramming tool coming possibly next spring. So of course we have application portfolio, biz apps, app services, digital integrations, digital interfaces, technology portfolio. This is where we have both technology reference model and technology portfolio management. It used to be two fairly separate things. we're really bringing them together and calling it technology portfolio because the two work together. So technology reference model, that's our technology standards. The discovered technology, technology risk, all of this is around that technology alignment, understanding where our deployed usage of technology is for our business applications. Then information portfolio, you see where we have data domains, the info objects, architectural artifacts, diagrams. This is a place, another place where you can get to a list of the diagrams, just a general list view. Then there's a new area, my whatever it is, my capability, my process, my business application. This gives you that personalized list. You always had my lists and you could have created those. We're giving it to you out of the box. If you're associated to the entity through, for example, business application, if you're a business owner, if you're an IT owner, it's your list is going to show up here. So it's a convenience. And then finally, uh, total cost of ownership, the new feature released back in February. This allows us to record financials against the business applications. There's cost types, etc. There's articles up on community, and look for a future webinar on what we can do with total cost of ownership. And then finally, setup. The setup functionality with Xanadu, the whole administration section has moved over into setup here in EA Workspace. Guided setup is still out there for those that used it and use it continually. Guided setup is still there. But the other parts have been deprecated. If you have it installed, it's still going to be there. But if you have a new install, you're not going to see it. So all of the setups over here, categories, category groups, app families, indicators and scoring, TRM phases, TRM categories, the information data domains, demand actions, total cost ownership, sources and cost types. Couple of key things you have to set up in order to use TCO, which we saw back up in the previous. In order to be able to enter TCO, you got to have a source and you also have to have a cost type. Then enterprise modeling, we're going to talk about what these are. Shape libraries gives you that list. Remember when we were looking at it, it said enterprise architecture, that's a shape library. It's a collection of shapes. Modeling configuration controls actions that you can do within the model. Entity configurations. What entities can I create? Business application. What else? We're going to talk about that future capability to add a new one. We'll talk about that later in the presentation. And then relationships, how things are connected. Next, we have PM portfolios. If you have SPM activated, you're going to see the project management PM portfolio table, and that can be associated to your business application. Some customers still use that. It's not been as widely used, but it's still available. And then certification schedules. That's for doing those on-demand and scheduled certifications for data maintenance. So now we've looked at some PowerPoint for a while. Let's pull up a system and take a look at it. Give me one moment while I prepare a system. And here we are, we're at the home page. So here we can see we have a set of different, and that one I don't have good data for, but based on the context, application portfolio, business portfolio, technology portfolio, I have different insights that I can look at and deal with. If I want to configure my insights, I can go to the configuration for APM EA configurations. And here we see all of those Insight configurations. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but we have two types. Visualizations, those are some of the platform analytic visualizations. So you could create a donut or a chart or just a score, and then you can plug it into one of these cards and have it show up where you want it. You control where it shows up by picking the section and then identifying the order, and it just stacks them up. It's a little box group type container, and it's just going to stack them up starting 100 going up, or whatever numbering scheme you use. It's just going to keep stacking them to the right till it runs out of space and it starts a new row. This controls what section, what area. And so we see a whole variety. If we're looking at all of the application portfolio ones, these are all the ones that are available. I get questions every now and then. People don't see all of these. They're here, they're true. Why don't I see it? If there's no information for it, what happens with these out of the box ones, they simply won't show. They don't show you anything. Rather than showing you a zero or nothing to look at, it just shows nothing. That kind of it's handy to do that because it saves that precious space that we have here in the UI. When you look at this, we got room for what, about six, maybe seven of these little cards at this. I've got my screen blown up a little bit, but I don't have a whole lot of room. So I don't want to be running way off the edge. So I only show what has information to share with me. Again, it's all configurable so you can make it your own. We'll come back to these in a little bit when we talk about our configuration. Needs attention. Again, what I have requests out, I have certifications I need to do, assessments that I've been assigned. These are all things that are going to show up here. Tech portfolio audit. This is need to verify the calculated life cycles or the estimated life cycles. Sometimes the life cycle lookup's not perfect. That's what tech portfolio audit is doing, is saying we couldn't find a perfect match. Verify that you like this. And then technical debt. This is where you're using technologies that don't align to the technology standards in TRN. Next, we get down to that portfolio overview and health. Here's all of our business applications. We have various filters here so that you can slice and dice it. I know that there are some out there, probably on this call, that have added new filters here. I do caution you, I understand completely the need for the filters. It can cause skipped records. So if you do modifications here to add new filters, watch out for skipped records when you go to do your upgrades. But this gives you a list of the various entities. It is showing something that I might have put in inside applications with a low score, apps with TRM technical debt. Those might better be done as insights, but here they are. They're available for your use. And then here's portfolio health. Missing this, missing that. I don't, so it shows business applications, capabilities, etc., that need some attention. This would be the APM admin space. Look at these. These would be those key scores and critical things that you want to look at as an APM admin. And even as perhaps an EA or a business owner, you might want to understand the portfolio health of what you're looking at so that you can know whether you're making good decisions or not. So, in dashboards, here we see we have, the 5 areas of the enterprise architecture dashboard, but also we can switch to other dashboards. You see, I've created one called my EA dashboard, and I added a couple of things. Here's application, number of applications, GRC risks. Here's business application, number of demands. Here's the demand details. And so I can, from here, I can pick which I want to look at. If I'm working with my indicators, I can understand, and I can pick my application here. I can understand what my indicator trends are, those sort of things. Again, I've got a lot of power, or the power of the dashboard, but it's in one place. I don't have to jump out to another screen. I can get to the things that I need. This is where you would create new. We'll talk about that shortly. Business portfolio, again, compared to the old business capability page, this one is pretty powerful, and it's really clean is what I like about it. I can expand my hierarchy just with a click. I see the applications where they're associated, um, and from any one of these, I can I can add a new sub capability very quickly and easily. I can assign a new business application, create a demand, view the roadmap. So if I get down here, for example, I want to look at the view roadmap, it's going to take us over into a strategic portfolio workspace and show us a plan. And I don't have any work in there, so not much to see. I didn't pick a good one this time, sorry. So as we look at these, of course, we can get the flyout, see details. I can go to the full details. I can always go to that full form. This is just standard workspace stuff. I see the child capabilities here. When I look at here's where I can manage update. That's going to set these numbers if you don't set them yourselves and control that. I can add a new capability. So here's another way of adding a top level capability. And then I would use the little create a capability. I have to pick capability to do it, but this is where I create a capability to look at or create sub capability. Sorry. You can control what you see. So we have scores. Scores are periodic, so I control the fiscal year that I'm looking at it. And it's only fiscal year, everything's captured and rolled up, and the scoring at fiscal year for these. And we get some information, number of capabilities, leaf capabilities, who's been assessed, not assessed, where are their major gaps, medium gap, no gap. So they're giving you some quick information from the capability, again, trying to drive that capability based rationalization and strategic management. Next, app rationalization, the bubble chart. So right now I'm on it's not Q4 24 yet, so I need to go to FY 24. And I'm just going to go to the yearly one. And so now I'm seeing data. I can create a demand and just take direct action, or better yet, as I discussed, I can set my disposition, invest, sustain, migrate, retire. If I migrate, I can pick the application. If there's another application I'm migrating to, I can pick it. I can determine or declare my migration strategy. So what we're doing here is declaring our business strategy towards this application. What do we plan to do with it? And typically this is done 2 to 3 years, sometimes even 5 years out. So you would set this and manage it, perhaps put some dates here in your reasoning so that those consuming this information understand this is what we intend to do. When the time comes, you're going to create a demand and drive the actual activities. This bubble chart is controlled by a set of X and Y axes. We're going to talk about how you can add more to this. This is what comes out of the box. And then these bubble size, any indicator that is being used as a part of a scoring profile is going to show up in this list. So my bubble size, or my Z axis of this, I can control what it is. I can control my bubble layers. At some point in time, maybe next year, we're going to have different options for controlling the bubble color. Right now, it's showing just plan disposition. If you can't get the answers here with the bubble chart, we also have the list view. And this is really showing us those. Not only is it showing us the application and its indicators, it's showing the work. So this, I mentioned this before. Here's the projects and demands associated to the buy it application. He's set as a disposition to migrate. And so that gives me the ability to, and I want to get this down here so I can slide over. I can do an evaluation. I can slice and dice and get a lot, using the power of a list view, get an understanding of what might be a candidate for maybe retirement, or maybe I'm looking for candidates for investment. It could be the other way. Rationalization doesn't necessarily mean retirement. It means evaluating the portfolio to understand what we intend to do, where we intend to improve and optimize, going back to those three pillars. Again, here's your filters up here in the view. And of course, there's always the traditional filtering in the particular headers. TRM catalog. Again, this is a breakdown by the categories. So I have a category at the top level. It tells me here so I can understand what I'm seeing. Product category, here's a software, HTTP server, and here's a particular version, 905. It's in the divest phase starting back in 22, and that ended. We don't have a follow-on phase, but if we did, we'd see it listed below. This is just giving us that view of approved, not approved, and letting me go out and find, for example, if I'm under database, what's available. Here I see I have two products, DB Server and SQL Server. What versions? In this case, I'm out of luck because they're both unapproved, standard and enterprise. But in a well-populated system, I'd see what is approved, and I could, I put in a request or create a catalog request to start using. If I don't find what I need, if I'm not a part of EA, I could request a new product. I might request Postgres or something if it's relational database. Or if I'm in EA and I actually own this, I would go ahead and manage it and create a new product underneath this. Again, it's all right here. You don't have to jump out to list views and the left nav menu. We're keeping everything in control right here within the EA workspace. That's the key point. Now here, what we're showing is just a list. You can filter this list. You can update the columns. So you have other columns that you could add. And you can filter on these lists. Like you might filter by publisher. I just want Microsoft. So now I'm just working with Microsoft. I can find what I want, or I can look for it by product, etc. Modeling. We want to spend a little bit of time here in modeling. So let's start with an existing one. I'm going to open a pre-existing integration model. And this one was built, actually has some changes that's been approved. See, it says commit changes here. So we have 3 versions. I could go back to version 1, take a look at where we started. And we had, invoice tracker and buy it have an integration between them. And the digital integration is the buy it invoice tracker here. In version 2, we added a little bit more. The person is invoking from invoice tracker. Impacted applications are We've got a demand that's tied into this, so I can see that I've got some work going on here. But also I understand that I have this interface and this invoice tracker. And then finally in version 3, I have the model I want. I've got some changes. I got a digital interface. I got the digital integration. I see the details of what this represents via the digital interface and the digital integration. And I've made some changes here so I could commit those changes. They were approved by Enterprise Architecture. If I go back to enterprise modeling, I mentioned we can just start here with models. So I'm going to create an architecture model, set a category. I'm just going to call it architecture vision, and I'm going to create our diagram. So I've got a palette of general shapes that I can use up here. And then more importantly, I've got a palette of enterprise architecture elements. So here, application, that's the CMDB/CI Apple table. So software installed on a server that might be of use. Application service, pretty important to us in EA and APM. And then most of all, business application. Here's business capability, business process, business service, business unit, computer, demand, departments, digital integration, digital interface, dynamic CI group, form of application service, hardware models, information object, project, SDLC component, a server, service portfolio, a software product, a technical service, and a technical service offering. So that's our, with this first release, that's our out of the box palette of entities that come from the quote repository that is ServiceNow, ITOM, and APM working together. So I'm just going to create a business application. When I create it, I can say I'm creating a new one and I can give it a name, fill in various elements, or I can choose an existing and it's going to let me search for that existing one. So I'm going to pick attendance. So now I've got the business application here. That's great. What can I do with it? Well, let's pull in some more information about it. I want to get the app services. So I'll pull in my application services. Automatically looks in the system, brings this stuff in. Look, it knows to look by that consume by. So now I've got all of the application services that are part of it. If I look at one of these, we'll see if I can pick up something. Yeah, I can see the Linux server and the Windows server. So okay, I can bring in these servers for it. It's probably about as far as I can go. It's not configured yet to go further from that, but you get the idea. I could start here. I can say, oh, I want to see this, I want to see that, and I can add to it. I can grow this diagram. Maybe part of my architecture is I'm going to add a new application service. So this is going to be create new, and it's going to be my new prod app service. Okay. Um, various things. I can save it. Now, now it was saved to the diagram. It's not saved in the CMD or in the CMDB. It's not saved in the application service table. I can relate it, and it's going to let me go out and find my consumes. Or it should. It's here in the list somewhere. For now, I'm just going to put cools. You'll see it adds the label here. But now I've got this application service, a new application service. In order to commit it, I need to submit for approval. So I would submit it. And that's going to go off. The workflow behind this is going to the EA group. So that's something that would need to be configured. And then since it's submitted for approval, I can't change it. I can save a new version, I can duplicate it, but I can't add anything new. Notice my palette went away. So now once it's approved, we can approve it and then these things could be committed. I'm not going to commit it right now in this model, but hopefully you get the idea. So next in our list, business architecture, value streams. So here's the value stream stages. I don't have any defined in this system, but it's a new model. Again, we'll have some articles up in community on this new model, and we'll talk about the future of value streams in EA. We've got some exciting things coming up. Business capabilities, business process. Again, these are the lists of key entities that are part of the EA practice here with EA Workspace. Business applications, these are worth taking a stop by. Let's take a look at this. You see, this is the new form of the forms view. Infrastructure relationships, these are the things that we used to see in the relationship formatter. Specific association and alignment to services or business applications are shown here. So we separate that out from just infrastructure, things that they're brought in by that connection to the application services. Of course, you can have attachments and you can have templates for this. That's just standard out of the box stuff. Open map gives us the new universal mapping, the old dependency diagram. This is the new replacement for it. So we can see that map, understand the connectivity. We can control what it is, how many levels we want to go, and that sort of thing. Create a demand. Again, here we go. We can take action. Update TPM data. Again, this is our control point from this particular business application. If I know my infrastructure has changed, I can tell TPM to update and run that job from right here, just on this application, not wait a day or two for the automated job to go and run. Here's the created diagram. So here I create a new artifact. Pick a category for it. And I pick what I want to see. Here, I'm just going to pick integrations and interfaces and my info objects. I create the diagram. It tells me it's been created. It's actually going to show up under the architectural artifacts. We'll go look at that in a moment. But jumping over to the diagram itself, there it created it for me. Here's the info objects. And we have one digital integration. So it created that. So one click, I've actually created something, created this integration or integration diagram, architectural diagram. So back to our business application. If we look at architectural artifacts, you see that new diagram shows up in here. Attendance architecture. Other areas, of course, are the life cycles. So this is the TPM view that we a great number are interested in for the technology life cycle management. Here I can understand technology alignment. In other words, the technology that's deployed as a part of my application and where I have technical risk. This is showing specific risks. It's not showing general availability. That's one of the things we've been asked for. But currently it does just show where I have a risk. So this one is end of support and there's end of extended support. So I see, I'm already into bad problems here. I way past end of support. If I have a TRM and it uses TPM to understand what TRM is related, it'll show the TRM life cycles as well. GRC risks, engagements, there's that integration with GRC. Other interesting areas, digital interfaces, digital integration, TRM technical debts. If I have any technical debts discovered against this application, I'm going to see them here. And one other area I want to talk about here is total cost of ownership. That's something I didn't hit the diagram here. Let me go back to this. Here's our just a diagram showing it's really cost this quarter versus last quarter. It's showing the current quarter. So this is probably someplace that we might improve and allow you to pick the quarters, but this is showing the current quarter. So again, lots of information shown here, lots of capabilities. Finally, our setup. So this again is meant to replace the old traditional under application portfolio management. We had administration, we had all of these various lists that you would manipulate and work with. We're bringing them over here into setup so that you configure and manage it. So that's a quick demo and rundown. Back to our presentation. Configurations. We want to talk about some of the areas of configuration. I'm going to fly through this pretty quick, but I want you to make sure you know what you can do. So we talked about this early on, EA configurations. You can activate or deactivate the out-of-the-box ones. There's two types, script, which means you can go find whatever via script, and all you're producing is a JSON output. We'll show what that looks like in a little bit. JSON is a scripting term. It's a JavaScript entity, if you will. You can define access roles. So there's a mechanism where you can say this group sees it and that group doesn't. So particular users under a role, you put them in a group so you can control what insights they see versus others. So your IT owners might see one set of insights, but an EA would see another, and your administrators for APM would see yet another set. A lot of possibility there. Specify the placement, that's the section. You use the ordering to just group them together. It's where they're going to show up in the layout. So I mentioned JSON. So if anybody who's done some JavaScript coding, they'll know what JSON is. This is the output that configuration is generating. It's a title, it's the count, so it's showing 22 or 33 or whatever it is, however many applications or whatever things you are showing. Here's the count. There's the description, the label, some tooltips that you can put in there, border colors, a lot of these things that stay with just kind of the out of the box. But navigation, this is where we could control where this thing goes. And what we can do is if we go back to that system that we were just looking at, up front, we created this one called GRC application risk. If we go look at its configuration, here we see the script. So we just started off with the overall entity. We run a JavaScript is basically going out and finding the applications that have a GRC risk associated with them. We bring it back, we update this entity, and that's what shows up in the workspace. It shows us 97 here. And then also we configured in that insight, we configured a little list view. On this one, we actually we're looking at the GRC risk tables, and we're just looking for risks that have a particular type. But it gives you a lot of power. You can have an insight, you can jump into the details, you can take activity is the point of it. So, example of the script. Again, you can manage the access so you could identify who gets to see it, who can access it. And visualizations using platform analytics, you go configure a donut or a pie chart or whatever, or a score, and you can simply plug it in as a visualization. It's much simpler. You're going to give it the section, the order. You tell it that it's a visualization. You go pick the visualization. You can manage the access just like the others. Dashboards. We talked about this a little bit from the Enterprise Architecture Dashboard. In the vertical ellipsis, you can select Create New. Create a new dashboard. You can use the inline editor, the technical editor. So you'll need some knowledge of how to do platform analytics and dashboards. But once you build it, you can post it in there and you've got a new dashboard. Rationalization. So one of the big things is if you configure your own indicators, and maybe you don't use, there's roughly 20 indicators out of the box. You may not use them all, or maybe you created some new indicators like mean time to restore. You can configure this X and Y axis using the old bubble chart configuration. Access it from left nav. And in that, these settings, there's the old bubble chart, there was a lot of configuration about the top left label, top right label, the labels for the quadrants, the Z-axis, and the label used on the X, Y, and Z. Those are not controllable from this configuration anymore in EA Workspace. What it'll show is what really matters is the X and Y indicator. That's what's being used. The rest of this, as you can see, the colors, the labels, the quadrant labels, those are ignored with the new EA Workspace. But the important thing, if you've got indicators that matter and you want to be able to use them, you've got to create this bubble chart configuration. So indicator framework, just to make sure everybody knows what that is, from assessments, performance analytics, the service graph, CSDM, scripts, whatever it is, we can create a set of indicators. We put them into a scoring profile, and the weighted sums of those indicators give us a score. So that's what we're talking about. If you're not familiar with indicators, this graphic will give you an example of what indicators do. It's pulling information out of operations or subjective information from assessments and giving us a metric that we can use at a strategic level to help evaluate and rationalize our application portfolio. Modeling and visualization. Currently, modeling configuration, really there's nothing that you can configure out of the box right now. But the intention to have that capability is there. I'll show you a little demonstration of it in a moment. We'll talk through kind of the first things we intend. As you notice, there was a set of about 15 entities. What if you want to add more entities? So one of the first things we want to be able to do is add a new entity. So we have shape libraries, modeling configurations, entity configurations, and relationships. I'm going to walk you through the steps that you'll be able to use to add a new entity. In our use case, we wanted to add something called a technical capability. So we created in our demo system, we created a new type called technical capability. And I'm going to bring up my demo system here too. So here's my technical capabilities. I'm just mirroring the pattern that we have in business capabilities, but this is a set of healthcare. I can treat patients. I can manage patient records, provide prescriptions. These are just some made up examples. They don't really have that much meaning. But more importantly, what I can do is I can create a diagram. And I have my new technical capability. I've added this. So now I can choose existing. So I might pick provide prescriptions. I've just defined some relationships in here. I said with business capability, I can associate and say that a business capability um, needs to be able to have or requires a particular technical capability. Here, suggested relationships requires technical capability. So I've added this entity, I've added this relationship type. This is going to be really powerful for people as you express more and more with your enterprise modeling. So the way that I did this, we'll go through the steps. So first, I added my technical capabilities. I defined my suggested relationships. This is a CMDB activity. Of course, you'd have to have an admin or somebody with, the proper roles in CMDB. Next, I had to create a new icon. So again, you'll have to be admin. You go to db_image list and you upload an SVG. If you look at these and you sort them by enterprise modeling and visualization, you'll see all the ones that are already out of the box. I really just downloaded one and then re-uploaded it with the name technical capability SVG. And here you see where I uploaded and attached it. So that basically makes the image available for use by pages within ServiceNow. The next thing, and this one has a big red note. This one has a lockdown ACL. You'd have to modify ACLs to be able to create these. There is a fix in the works to allow modeling admin. It's a new role with EA. Modeling admin should be able to create these, and we're going to get that fixed. So I create this diagram action first, call it technical capability. I use the APM diagram configuration. I say it's a CI type item. It's category and subcategory for now. You just use the defaults. I made it my scope is enterprise modeling and visualization. And most importantly, here on this page, I tell it where to find the SVG, that little diagram. Next, I create an entity configuration. I'd say this is identifying and associating the table in ServiceNow to the modeling item. So I have the diagramming notion really is bringing in that notion of the icon that we're going to use. This is entity configuration, tech capability. Here's the table. The display field is name. The view is default. I created a default view, or I might have a preferred view. Again, I made sure it's under the enterprise modeling and visualization scope. Next, I created the relationship between it and the technical capability, business capability. I also have one for business application. And then finally, I want to add it here. I had to add it to the library, and it shows up here. I think I skipped a step. Yeah, I did. Okay. Now on the roadmap. Big rocks, enterprise modeling. We intend to grow and grow. Technical debt management, technical life cycle management is a big part of the roadmap. Digital integration management, there's new changes. And then, of course, Gen AI is coming to enterprise architecture. We have the first version release. We have the one click. We want to be able to one click as much as possible. We're going to support standards such as Archimate and BPM, value stream, capability modeling, business process modeling, application modernization. So coming soon, it says November, we're going to have the traditional business capability boxes and boxes. It's called a tree map. So here's a tree map. So here's the outer box is the top level capability, then the capabilities underneath it, then the applications that support it. These things eventually will be color coded based off of roll-ups from indicators, et cetera. And so we can not only do you see how things are aligned, but you get indicators or colors showing you health or whatever it is that you might be interested in. Archimate, we're going to support a set of, there's a mapping between CSDM and Archimate that's been published, and we're going to support Archimate level modeling of entities in the modeling tool. Value stream modeling. So value stream and value stream stages that we mentioned earlier. The data models out there now, we are going to introduce in February the ability to be able to do value stream modeling. So this is a value stream stage. These entities underneath, you see the little icon, those are business capabilities that support that particular value stream stage. That's the concept here. Business process, so BPMN process diagramming, again, February 2025. Additional functionality, scoring, indicators, controlling the colors, conditional based off of other attributes. So the ability to color the model and convey more information. Diagramming templates, new kinds of templates, define your own templates, UML modeling, attachment of architectural artifacts to not only does the diagram become an architectural artifact, we can attach other artifacts. And then grouping, rotating, bring front to back, things that all modeling tools do. We're not quite there yet with it. It's brand new. So we're going to have a lot more functionality and features. And then standards, architectural standards, so patterns, what TOGAF would call solution building blocks, governance and life cycle, so impact assessments of integrations, data certifications and survey. There's a new facility in the platform for data certifications, new dashboards, and the ability to associate the diagrams to digital interfaces. And then use cases currently for now assist in EA, text to model, image to model, suggest best practice, model to text summarization, summarize request decisions. We're introducing the concept of architectural decisions, app rationalization, and summarization of architectural decision records. And here's a set of resources. Again, this will be available as a PDF for you to download. Future webinars, like we mentioned at the first, sign up to get more of these. And just a little bit. When you need help, you want to get more done. ServiceNow Impact, training and certifications and expert services are out there to help you fulfill your goals.